Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, was passed in 1990. It requires institutions that receive federal funding to repatriate or return specific items and remains to Native Americans and Hawaiians. Within the context of this video, institutions are defined as museums, universities, and repositories that receive federal funding and hold NAGPRA-eligible items.
The interesting thing about NAGPRA that I've learned over the decades that I've been doing it is how individual the implementation of NAGPRA is. I will often tell students that it's sort of like fulfilling taxes, that you can go to several CPAs and they're all going to give you a different answer. None of them are necessarily going to be wrong, but they're going to be unique. And NAGPRA is that way in terms of there's a law that's written down, but each institution has to decide, is this seen as a social justice law, human rights, or is this an administrative law, like changing a light bulb, where, okay, we put together a list of our ancestral remains and we give that to tribes and we're done.
There has to be a social commitment to also bringing the law into fruition. And so we can have a law like NAGPRA, but it's only as good as it's carried out in the people that are on the ground.
If the institution doesn't feel like this is an important law, doesn't understand it, isn't really invested in creating a collaboration between the institution and the tribes, you're not going to see good work being done.
A lot of it has to do with the personalities and the people involved. I think where I've seen more entrenched views has been around the idea that somehow repatriation will thwart the advancement of knowledge and thwart scientific inquiry. And that I have seen that stop the moving forward of what I would consider to be completely legitimate repatriation processes, because the parties in power don't even want to open the door to come to the table.
Some folks who just are not grasping it, not understanding. They feel like we're rewriting history.
You can feel that resentment still, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we're supposed to be there and we will be there.
They just feel that the bottom line that they're more superior, and they have the know-it-alls to tell everyone else who they are.
There is not a level of trust between tribal people, generally speaking, and institutions in this country, whether they be the federal government, other governmental institutions, or universities that a lot of tribal people see as extensions or arms of governmental entities, which they've had historical distrust, they've had historical issues with that have caused this distrust.
Sometimes it's not necessarily that they mean harm to a tribe, but they just don't understand it, don't know where to start, and frankly might be a little afraid.
They get fearful sometimes of setting a precedence, and they don't know what that's going to do, and they don't want to be the ones responsible for whether it goes this way or that way.
Whenever you're asking someone to incorporate something new, like, oh, we need you to incorporate tribal communities into this discussion early and incorporate their information, it's all about fear is why it won't happen. Because archaeologists and anthropologists don't understand and don't know what tribes are going to say or do, and they're afraid of that, and they don't know how to incorporate that into the system.
I think people are always worried about miscommunicating their intent with Native people because it's something that sits so far aside of their knowledge systems.
When something is an unknown, you're afraid of it and you don't know how to incorporate it. So the human nature is to push back, is to say, no, we don't know how to do that. We're not going to do it. It's a different culture. How are we going to fold that in? What basis? How am I going to judge what they're saying is true or false? And then you start getting into all these dynamics where tribes might feel like they're not being trusted. And what do you mean we're going to lie and we're not going to say you can't verify what we're saying? You get into all those nuances that just cause so much division.
We as individuals might have a great relationship with individuals who are working there at that institution at that time, but then as soon as there's a transition or something happens and that person's not there, then who are they going to talk to? You know, and vice versa. It goes both ways.
Integral pieces of our values, our life ways, who we are being ripped away, thrown on a shelf to be studied in a sanitized way. It's disassociated from any cultural values at all. And it feels disrespectful, it feels hurtful, it feels like a violation. And then to not ask us about information when you're trying to study these things is then another violation on top of that.
You can't have good research practices without working with tribal communities.
In order for this to work, it has to be a joint process. It has to be a more of a government-to-government process. It has to be something where the tribal communities feel and not just feel, but know that they are being brought into this equally, on an equal footing, and their voice has an equal weight that it's carrying.
We have to actually go beyond the law because of the way that these items were secured were not just illegal oftentimes and breaking the law, but it was also just unhuman in some senses. And so we really have to step up, I think, past NAGPRA. Yes, we have to implement it. It gives us a vehicle or a key to do it, but there also has to be an ethical commitment within our universities.
It's really about us getting to know each other as humans, and it's then that it becomes a familiarity, and then it's like, oh, okay, we can venture into this. It's not going to be the end of the world, and we can figure it out together.
Not every institution is bad because they don't do it right, but we still have a long way to go in order to fill the gap between what academics and what institutions know about living tribal communities and how to bring them involved, how to bring them into the process of NAGPRA so that good work can be done and people can go home.
Those ancestors, they're just sitting there on the shelves or in collections. I mean, the stories are horrific. And to the communities will not heal completely